begun the first installment of a new thing on my channel that I'm calling the Cinematic Shuffle. And what this essentially is I go back in time. I go back to the archives of old movie reviews that I wrote on a website called Dave Examines Movies. Now, these movie reviews don't exactly reflect how I see movies nowadays because they're all rated on a grading scale I no longer use. I use something completely different now. It's been a long time since I saw these movies, so I grabbed like 750 movies that I wrote reviews for and never did anything on this channel for. I threw this list of 750, 775 movies, something like that, through a randomizer to let fate decide my next film review. I have so many movies on this list that if I do this every week, it'll take me 15 years, so I don't know how many movies I'm gonna get through using this thing. But the first thing that it came up with was American Pie 2, and because I don't want to start off a franchise in the middle, I'm gonna go back to the first one since I reviewed the entire franchise on my website. It's American Pie 1. American Pie is one of the most iconic teenage comedies that came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and anybody who's anybody knows exactly what this film is. It's essentially about a group of friends that create a pact together to lose their virginities before they go off to college, or in this case, basically at least by prom. And of course, juvenile hijinks ensue and just awkward humor, physical humor, just problems in general by being young. So I saw every single film in this series once. Not all the spin-offs that they have. I don't even know how many exist. But I saw the main ones. Just the American Pie, American Pie 2, American Wedding, American Reunion. I saw those. And this is a series that, you know, I have a lot of fondness for. I grew up in a conservative household, so this was the kind of movie that was considered a no-no. It was something that I couldn't watch until I left living with my family because it would have just been too awkward to enjoy properly. But once I was on my own and I started just kind of exploring different things that I was never allowed to watch, I enjoyed American Pie and all the subsequent sequels because really it's more about the characters than it is about anything else. The comedy in the film is incredibly awkward, especially when it comes down to these kids and their interactions with their parents and how weird that is. It's incredibly physical humor as well because it's insanely relatable. And really, honestly, it's all about these characters who are all incredibly written perfectly. If you were to tell me that these people really were hired on a film studio and just kind of met each other one day and just kind of had to act like they had chemistry and kind of just act like they were best of friends, I would have thought you're crazy. To me, these people were their characters. And to me, these people had chemistry that seemed like they had that chemistry for years. It is insane. It's insanely relatable. That's what this movie is at the end of the day. It's incredibly relatable, especially for me, who kind of sort of grew up in that time period. Nowadays, this movie probably wouldn't be able to be released in the same spirit because of probably a little bit of the Me Too movement, a little bit of the cancel culture mindset, because the way that these people treat each other, treat other individuals, treat women, treat things like that is juvenile. It's immature. It is degrading in some ways, like the scene where Jason Biggs' character sets up a webcam for basically the entire student body to spy on him and this girl who's in his room undressing. That would be a huge like red flag in terms of anything that a kid would do, and wouldn't be done today in the same way it was made when this film came out. But at the same time, I think that it's incredibly honest with love, with sex, with expectations in that area, and how you might want something, but you don't exactly realize what you truly want. Life happens unexpectedly, and things happen in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think you want, but it turns out that's for the better, if that makes any sense. As weird as it sounds, even though this movie is bonkers ridiculous, it's also realistic in the terms of awkward teenage humor, in the chemistry that the people have together. in the characters, how memorable they are at the end of the day. There's a reason why there's a million R-rated teen comedies out there that have tried to do the same thing as American Pie, because American Pie, I don't know, I feel like they just kind of stumbled upon what they had, which is great. The first time that I rated this movie, it was like 73% because I was still in the age where it was kind of awkward for me and I didn't know how I felt about it. When I saw it today, I was like, this movie's really, really good. And I can see the sequels just not being as good because part of what makes this so good is that it's kind of coming of age and it's kind of introducing all these characters and what makes them tick and what makes them so awkward and what kind of strengths they actually have. In a way, it's kind of perfect in terms of how iconic it is. So when I take a look at my end score here real quick, it is an A- letter grade, final overall score of 86%, 86 out of 100 possible stars, which is very, very good because I've seen a lot of movies like this over my life and a lot of them start to blend in a little bit together, but at the same time, a lot of the other comedies aren't as iconic, they aren't as memorable, they don't have characters that you'll remember in long term. And obviously this series did because of the whole idea that it did have sequels. It had American Pie 2, Wedding, and Reunion. Reunion was one of those sequels that came out years later, and the reason why they could do that is because it had such a huge cult following. It really did. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you like this idea of the cinematic shuffle, of just letting fate decide my next film review, and also, as for YouTube, let me know your thoughts about American Pie. What is your thoughts of this film? How would you rate it? And don't forget to hit the like, the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!